I've also met with Fully Raw Christina when we were in Bali, and she has a super nice vibe.
They're the people I look up to the most. The people who are non-divisive and peaceful and loving and not afraid to tell the truth.
I felt him a bit dogmatic, and that made me a little less inspired personally. Welcome to The Light Leaders, a podcast for those who came here to raise the consciousness of our planet and co-create the new Earth. If you're watching this, chances are you're part of the team. One of the most important things we, light leaders, can do to fulfill our mission is to reclaim our attention from the algorithms, the clickbait, and the endless distractions, to reclaim our ability to be present, focused, and intentional. So here's my invitation to you. Slow down. Take a breath. Be here. Set the intention to watch this episode all the way through so you can truly go deep with us. Thank you for your presence and enjoy the episode. Hi, and welcome to this new episode of The Light Leaders. Today I'm with Dillon, and we're both podcast hosts, and we're both into the raw vegan movement, and we've both interviewed a lot of the top influencers in the game, like Dr. Morse, Lou Corona recently, and we'll go through the names. But we thought, like last week, we had a conversation about podcasting. It's on my other YouTube channel, Conscious Podcast Lab. And we're thinking, we learned so much from those podcasts that it would be actually fun to do an episode on what did we learn from speaking as podcast hosts to the top influencers in the world, because sometimes it's something different when you speak directly with someone, when you organize with them rather than just watching the final recording as the audience, right? So we wanted to give you a little bit behind the scenes and what we feel, how it's been inspiring us and helping us on the journey. The idea is to be real, to be authentic, so it can help you. And of course, the idea isn't to be gossipy or to criticize people, but we just want to be real with it. So if need be, we can share also those opinions. How do you feel, Dillon? You excited about today?
Yeah, I'm going to leak all of Dr. Morse's secrets. No. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be super insightful. I think if I would have had this conversation maybe a few years back when I got started, I think it would have saved me a lot of time and a lot of trial and error and a lot of mistakes. So I hope it can be super valuable and insightful and just distill down a lot of our experiences, what's maybe taken us tens of hours, hundreds of hours to sort of learn and experience ourselves. If we can distill that down into this conversation here, then I think it'd be a great little resource for people to revisit and just be raw and authentic and just share our thoughts on a human level.
Amazing. And we can start with a quick intro with ourselves. So for me, I've had the podcast for over 7 years, and the past 4 years I became a raw vegan, and I've had a lot of the raw vegan influencers on the show. So as mentioned, I mentioned Dr. Morse and Lou Corona, and also Doug Graham, Shane Sterling, Eli Martyr, Professor Spira, Lauren Lockman, Josh X, and I'm probably forgetting a bunch of others like Brian Mirabella. You can go through my channel. I have a playlist actually on the fruitarians and the raw vegans and living foodists, and I've had a lot of the biggest ones. And first, it's been amazing for me because I also use that podcast to grow myself and to learn. So I could speak directly to the top in the world in that game. I'm hoping to get Fully Raw Christina soon also when she comes back to Bali. And I learned so much from asking them directly my questions. And so, and some of them I've had several times. And so we can dive into that. But I would say last interview I did with Lou Corona was really, really, really good. I was very inspired by him and by that. But then there are some people that maybe I was like, before I interviewed them, I was like, oh, wow, that looks amazing. It's got something. And And then I don't know, as I follow more, when I interact with them, I get a little bit more skeptical too. But anyway, that's been my experience. How about you, Dylan?
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. It's very similar myself. I haven't been going as long, but I went vegan around 6 years ago when I was probably about 15 in high school, and I noticed like drastic improvements. That was the biggest eye opener. That's when I noticed that maybe nutrition does play like a huge role. I previously thought it played a role, but yeah, I just had more energy, improved recovery for my football or soccer for the people in the US. And yeah, just felt a bit more peaceful, less anger, cleared up a lot of my acne and things like that on my back, which yeah, went really quickly after eliminating dairy. So that started off my health journey. And then I found raw foods around 3 years ago when my dad gave me a book, Man's Higher Consciousness, and that kind of led me onto that journey. And your podcast was actually one of the first ones I watched on these sort of topics, and I thought you asked a lot of good questions, a lot of questions I would have wanted to know, and you did it in a friendly way, a nice, calm, peaceful way, but you did challenge people, and you asked like questions that maybe were a little difficult, or questions that everyone's thinking but not everyone would ask. So I really like that. And yeah, I joined your group, the Light Leaders Q&A group, where we interviewed and asked questions to a lot of like raw vegans and health influencers. So that kind of started things off, and then I started the podcast just under 2 years ago. And that was, yeah, it's been a similar to yourself, it's been a personal growth tool. It's been super insightful. It's allowed me to ask questions I'm curious about, and also help the world in the process, because as podcast hosts, when we ask questions, we often help others, because a lot of other people have the same questions. And yeah, I think it's been really profound. I've done about 30 episodes now. I've been a little bit selective with who I've had on the channel. I could have done a lot more, but I've just followed curiosity and passion. I haven't had someone on the channel if I'm not interested in the topic, just for the sake of having an episode. And yeah, I think it's been super inspiring for me personally, and I think it's helped a lot of others already. And I'm just at the beginning of my journey, I think. And yeah, similar to yourself, Lou Corona, Dr. Robert Morse, Orville Douglas was one of my first guests. I've had a number of people, some names bigger, some names smaller, but everyone has an insight. That's what I really like. Everyone I've interviewed, I've learned something from. But yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet for the intro. And yeah, it's been really profound in my life so far.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And following the curiosity, I guess when you were listening to my podcast before you had yours, you could feel that I was genuinely wanting answers for myself first, and then just airing
For sure.
them out. So I think that's where it's very valuable. And we have a whole conversation where we have insights from podcasting on that other channel. I'll put the link in the description. And today it's more about the raw vegan journey, especially. But yeah, in that conversation, I remember following the curiosity for podcasting is so important. Yeah, I was also thinking I had like Ted Carr, so Anne Osborne,
Yeah.
Remson Noir. So yeah, a lot of them. I'd love to ask you, who did you feel was the most inspiring?
Yeah. I guess they came at different points in my journey. I'd say initially people like Orville Douglas, pretty inspiring, because he was 60, he was thriving on mainly fruits. So yeah, Dr. Morse, super positive man, super inspiring. I think he was great as well. I don't know, they've all been great. Lou Corona recently, super inspiring. I know you had him on the channel as well. So I think everyone is inspiring, but especially the ones who are older and maybe like my grandparents' age, and they're like still like vibrant young kids. They're the most inspiring for me. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's interesting to have those different vibes of like some older generations sometimes, like Lou Corona or Dr. Moss. I really liked how we can go deep into consciousness, and and at the same time, yeah, for example, with Spira, I love his open-mindedness and his vibe, and I've had a bit the same with Eli. And it's interesting because for me, with the channel, what I really like to do sometimes is conversations with more than one guest, actually. So for
Yeah.
a long time, my top episode was with Shane Sterling, Eli Martyr, and Professor Spira together. having the conversation. Now it's the one with Doug Graham became the biggest one. But it's interesting when people interact together, because it's often it can be a little bit more confrontational because people have different opinions. And I remember some combinations, they work very smooth. So Eli, Shane, and Spira, it worked actually really smooth. Like when I had Spira with Lauren Lockman is a little more like, I feel a little bit more like, that's my way, that's the right way. And he could get a little bit more contracted, I feel, when people have different views. So it was actually, it did really well. It was a super interesting conversation. But then, then I felt, even though I've had him many times and I met with him and I learned so much from him and the YouTube videos, I'm so grateful for that. But then in those exchanges, sometimes, especially with Spira, I could feel it gets a little, I felt him a bit dogmatic, and that made me a little less inspired personally. And it was interesting. I had him again with Josh X, and Josh X was kind of the opposite, like super, super open-minded, even though they had different views on things. And that actually went better because Spira and Lauren, they were a little bit more like going against each other, was Josh was just flowing with it. Another one that was interesting is when I had Shane Sterling and the Graham. They were you can watch also, but the episode didn't do as well because they weren't speaking as directly to each other, I feel, and more each having their view. And so for me, speaking directly with people, sometimes I feel I get a better vibe from that, not as much. And
I remember when I was actually going to mention before you said that, how when you had multiple people on, I found those episodes really interesting because like you say, you can see how people interact with one another. Because it's one thing when you're talking to the camera on your own, you're making a YouTube video, you can be really, you can be a really persuasive speaker and orator. But then when you're interacting with someone else with an opposing viewpoint, then it's interesting to see how people interact with one another and just how loving and caring they really are when someone challenges their ideology.
It is.
So, yeah.
It is. Recently, I wanted to set up also maybe, I don't know, I was speaking with Freely, the banana girl. Have you spoken with her? Because I know she's been also on her channel actually criticizing quite a bit, like Fully Raw Christina and things like this. And so I was like, maybe we can do like a conversation with Doug Graham, for example. For now, she's declined, but I feel for me, especially if people speak about other people, and then it's like, well, let's speak together.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah, I've thought about maybe reaching out to Freely at some point when my curiosity and passion is taking me in that direction. I think, like you say, if you're going to call someone out, then I think it's important that if that individual responds and they want to have a friendly conversation or debate, then you stay true to that. And if you believe in what you say and if you know what you say is true, then you should have no issue just articulating it in a conversation. But I think the people I've gravitated towards the most, who I've interviewed and seen on your channel and other channels, is the people who give off an aura of just calm energy and love and still vitality. And they're not couch potatoes. They don't lack energy, but they just emanate in every essence of their being. They emanate like a higher vibration. They don't get drawn into gossiping or lower vibration things. They, like Josh X, for example. I remember when I saw him on your channel, he's super peaceful. Like you could probably go to sleep listening to him. At the same time, he's also still got energy and he demonstrates it with his results and his physique. So I think Josh X is maybe someone who embodies a lot of the qualities that
have you had him on the
admire.
channel?
Yeah, a while back. Yeah, probably have to get him on again. I think he's quite elusive though. On the internet, he's quite he prefers real life, which I totally get.
I think it might be with those people sometimes that are like in a higher consciousness, sometimes in a down to earth thing, might be a little bit hard because
Yeah.
man, I've been wanting to have him again because I love speaking with that guy. I really love him. But yeah, to get an appointment, it's like a lot of back and forth.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I think, yeah, what would you say have been like the biggest things that you feel like the people who are thriving have in common? Like what
Mm.
approaches or traits or approach, yeah, just what would you say they have in common?
Mm. Well, I mean, depends what thriving is, but in obviously in that case, they have a lot of disciplines, they have a lot of direction. What's interesting is also I feel sometimes to me there can be a little bit of maybe a tension between truth and business. So that's because of course usually when people build a business around something, it's because they've had a transformational experience, and I would hope in general it's something very genuine. Whether you're like Lauren Lockman doing water fasting retreats, or you're Shane Sterling doing the juice training, or your Dr. Morse selling the herbs, all of this. I believe in general, it's like, okay, well, this happened in my life, or Lou Corona doing the enzymes or whatever. And then I've developed this modality or this coaching or this product based on my results. And then I developed that as a business because I believe so much in it. But then when you do that, you become vested in that thing, right? So then you become vested in not changing your mind in a way, business wise. And so usually the people who are successful, they both like did a deep search in that truth and it worked for them. But the ones that are also big influencers, sometimes they have a system that works. And that's an interesting thing because sometimes I'm feeling like, are you still open? Or are you still open-minded? Or now that you're so vested into this is the way, you're not really interested in what's the truth. And I think that's why a discussion like this between you and I is interesting, because I feel, at least in the, for me, I do my coaching and all this, but in the health, I'm not like super heavy on one system, like, oh, you must do the dry fast or water fast or the juice fast or eat this and that and take those supplements. And maybe I will be in 5 years when I'm so convinced about something that I feel everyone should have, or most people. So yeah, that's why it inspired me, your question. How about you?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's when people have a vested interest, then we accuse the meat and dairy industry of doing it with their funded studies and that side of things. It's no different in the natural health world. Just because at the very, very start of my journey, I was very naive, and I thought that just because someone was raw or like they were into natural health, that they just, what they're saying must be true, and why would they lie to people, or why would they uh you know market something that maybe isn't the best fit for people. But like you say, when there's that business interest, then they need to do it to eat. Well, they don't need to, but they choose to. So sometimes people they may not be telling the God's honest truth, because like you said, that's what I've realized. There's not one approach. You don't need to necessarily do a juice fast. You don't need to do a water fast. You don't need to do a dry fast. I don't personally recommend dry fasting, but just because I think it's harmful for the kidneys and you need to get your body into a state where it can deal with it. But I personally am not a big fan of dry fasting. But I think you don't have to do a mono fruit cleanse. Like at the very start of my journey, I thought maybe to transition to a healthier lifestyle, you need to do one of these things. You definitely don't. It's just common sense, really. Whatever you want to get better at, just do that. So if you want to get better at eating a raw lifestyle, just slowly introduce more raw foods. It doesn't have to be overnight. So I'd say what the people I really look up to, like I think Josh X, he, even though he's not a big name on the internet because he doesn't personally choose to, show his whole life, and he doesn't upload that many videos because he gets censored a lot. I think someone like him, I feel like, is truly thriving because he looks super youthful for his age. I think he's maybe 40 or something like that. and he's got the physical aspect, he's got the fitness, he's got the energy, he's got the spiritual aspect. And yeah, I think being dogmatic, I maybe you can stay raw vegan for 40 years, but what are your results in life? How do you treat people around you? How much energy do you have for your loved ones? What are you creating in the world?
Let's have a quick break from the episode, as there is something I want to share with you. Thank you for still being here. It tells me you're someone who values a deep and insightful conversation. And that's my kind of people. In our world of ever-increasing distractions and clickbaits, it's important to share these long-form, deep conversations. And that's why I love podcasts. They've been a big part of my own spiritual awakening 8 years ago. And having my own podcast has expanded my life in so many ways. It allowed me to speak with my heroes and learn from them, to share my voice online and build a personal brand. And now I've become passionate about helping other conscious leaders also grow a high-impact podcast so we can flood the internet with insightful and meaningful content that helps us create that more conscious and beautiful world our hearts know is possible. If you feel the call to have your own podcast too, I can highly recommend it. And I'd love to help you. I created a community of impact-driven podcasters. And I also work one-on-one with leaders of the new earth to help them scale their impact with a podcast. Check out the links in the description if you want to learn more. And now, let's resume the episode.
Are you making the world more divisive, or are you encouraging peace and love and actually, raising the consciousness? And I do get it, because some people, they feel what they're saying is true, and everyone lives their own truth. I do get that, but how we go about spreading the message is super important, I think. And if we're too divisive with our approach, I don't think it ultimately leads to the greater good. So yeah, they're the people I look up to the most, the people who are non-divisive and peaceful and loving, and not afraid to tell the truth, but they do it in a way where it doesn't come across as dogmatic.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you added that also, because sometimes the truth can be divisive. And actually, I enjoyed. I've had a few people who are more vegan activists, and that can be quite divisive. Like Stefano Vegan Calisthenics, he goes in the streets and confront people. But I think it's a good thing to do, and courageous thing to do. And then, for example, recently, I don't know if you saw the video by Chris Kendall about mucoid plaques, but it's quite a niche thing in the raw vegan family. But are there mucoid plaques? And then again, we go back to a lot of people are vested in it. Every time I get Spira on the show, it's like, look at the mucoid plaques. And Shane Sterling is like, yeah, do the 40 juice to get rid of the mucoid plaques. And I've had Nova on the show. She talks quite a bit about, even Lou Corona, he was talking about it, right? And he shared in his video, if that's the case, that there's a lot of myth around it, I'm not going to make friends. But I appreciated that he shared about it. And I feel some people, sometimes they get big and they have a system, and sometimes it's easier to not confuse people, because if someone's new, it might work better, even in their interest, to be like, you know what, just do a 40-day juice fast. Trust me, that's the way. Just follow what I say. And then it's not overwhelming. And it gives hope to people. I also can activate their placebo and help them heal and all this, rather than being like, well, let's go into a 20-year deep research around what really works. But I also enjoy some of those influencers where I feel like, they're not so vested. And Chris Kendall would be one of them. Eli Marty also, I feel it's just like, he doesn't really have a product, a system, and just shares on his channel. There's a guy also, Vegetable Police, Cassie, and he's always very, very frankly sharing his results, even when he goes on different diets like carnivore and all this. But of course, that doesn't inspire trust so much. So I guess not as good for building a business. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah, 100%. That's why I like people who they tick all the boxes and they realize that the diet, is spiritual, it's energetic, it can help the physical body as well. Like it's all these aspects. When they keep stacking up, people who don't fixate on just one aspect, like some people, they're super obsessed with like natural hygiene, and they fit into that box. Like a couple people I've interviewed, like they don't necessarily live in the real world. For example, B12, that's a really controversial topic. And some people, they'll be like, they will really like have a go at someone in their community if they don't take B12. If they take B12, they're like, oh well, you know, we live in a natural world and no other animal takes B12 supplements, no other animal cooks their food. I totally get it, but no other animal poisons themselves with, poisons the environment with pollution and the foods they eat. No other animal has this much stress that we take on board, because when we stress, we burn through B vitamins all the time. So I think we don't live in that perfect utopia. So we do have to be grounded and realistic, and I think non-dogmatic. At the same time, I don't want to harm animals. Like I'm never going to go back to doing that. But if I have to take a supplement to look and feel better, and just because of the state of our modern world, then yeah, for me, B12 is something I've changed my mind on just based on everyone I've spoken to, and I do choose to supplement B12, and I think that is the one thing on a vegan or a raw vegan diet that, based on my experience, the risks of not supplementing is yeah, they're just too great. How about yourself? What are your views on maybe B12 or supplementation?
Yeah, I mean, in general, I don't take much supplement, but as you said, like I'm open to the idea that I don't live in a purely natural world, and there's always a limit to natural hygiene. Like even people who are really into it, they're doing things that chimps don't do,
Exactly.
at some point. So you can only push it out, like compared to most people, I push it pretty far. But yeah, for the B12, it's like I don't really think. I just take it like maybe once a month, something. I'll have a drop.
Yeah.
But sometimes I forget for 6 months. I think I'm fine. Like I don't have any sign. If I feel energized, I'm good. But I'm also taking it every now and then just to feel like, okay, I feel more safe. I feel
Yeah.
it's probably unlikely there's drawback. So usually like a drop every month or something. And I was taking at some point phytoplankton that has some,
Yeah.
even though I'm stopping that at the moment because just mainly because it's very expensive. But
Yeah.
I might get back on it.
Did you notice any benefits? Because I know we both interviewed Brian Mirabella, who's kind of like a fruitarian, pretty ripped, breathing coach,
Yeah.
and he recommended it. But I haven't heard too many other people recommend it. So did you notice any benefits?
Also, Rue Mackenzie, Australian guy.
Yeah. Okay.
And yeah, and without going too deep into B12 anywhere, my phytoplankton, it felt really good when I have it. I really like to mix it with coconut water. It tastes so good. So I would like to get more, and I will at some point. But with all the things, also it's interesting. It's like when I talk to people, obviously it's convincing. So that's how I went a little bit on a journey. And so, for example, I had a lot in my earlier days, Lauren Lockman, and in a way, like I talked at the beginning about like how I feels a bit too dogmatic now to my taste, but at the same time, he's pulled so many resources. So I did the water fast his way, was listening to his videos, only 12 days, which to him is short, but to me was pretty good. And it's super nice to have all this. I'm very grateful. But yeah, it's. I think the more interviewed at the beginning was every time I would speak to someone, I would change something based on what they say, and now I'm more feeling there's many different ways to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And it's just seeing who you resonate with, who you feel is a role model for you. Because if someone, you look at that individual and you're like, yeah, I want to be you when I'm 70, or have some of your character traits, then the proof is in the pudding. Some people are genetic outliers, like there are people who have smoked, and they live up to 100. So that's not to say smoking is good, but maybe you could take their approach. Maybe they're carefree. Maybe they don't stress when they do something, And maybe that's why they've lived so long, because of their outlook on life. That's something else I've noticed, regardless of diet, but especially in the raw vegan camp, the gratitude for life and the faith in a higher power, that seems to be something that everyone has. And when they've got that gratitude and that mindset, that seems to just fill you up with energy and love and peace. And that's how I think you truly thrive. Have you also observed similar sort of things?
I do, I do, and I think that's why also, like, I feel some people who do the raw vegan thing very well. Sometimes maybe if they don't do that as much, they don't age as well. So when I had Lou Corona, for example, he puts that like quite high in the list, and so I think that's where he gets much better results than. Well, I don't know, but when I look at Doug Graham or Lauren Lockman, I don't feel they're aging as well. At least in how it looks, they're still doing really well, you know. But yeah, I feel there could be an element of not focusing only on too much on the food and opening it up a bit. And yeah, in terms of inspiration, I'd say, I mean, there are some more in our age range. So in my, at least I'm 35. I think Ted Carr is 35 too, but he's been on the food giant thing for much longer time, and he used to run a lot. So he's getting really. So I think it's good to have. For me, I was looking for role models, right? But so I'm looking for role models of people who maybe are in my age range and perform really well, and then of aging also. So I'd say, yeah, Ted Carr might be one of the top for my age range. I really like Remson Noir, so he seems to she has really good results. For example, Josh X, I love him, but I don't want to become a big bodybuilder like he's doing now. So it's harder for me to identify with him. And then in terms of, I mean, Shane's obviously getting really good results for being in his 50s. And then Lou Corona, man. Yeah. So I want to, that's the type of people I'm like, okay, just tell me what you're doing. And I want to get inspiration from that.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you say, with Doug and Lauren, they're doing great work. Don't get me wrong. I've got a lot of value from some of their videos and content, and they've been doing it for decades. At the same time, I think stress, like you were saying, like if you haven't got the mindset component, or I do think they maybe have the mindset, but sometimes in life, stressful things happen, and maybe our interpretation of them is a bit stressful. So I think stress can age you super fast. Even if you have like a rough year, that can take years off your life. Just because I know Lauren, he had a whole situation with Tanglewood. I'm not sure where that's at now, but I'm sure you know more than me. But some things in life, like, they're super stressful. So like you say, it's maybe just being a little bit more flexible and fluid with things creates less mental difficulty and less mental stress and pain. Because when we're so firmly attached to a concept, and let's say you have a bit of steamed broccoli, and you literally are like, oh no, cook food is poison. Yeah, your body's going to react that way. Whereas when you're just the observer, when you just approach it with non-judgment, and you're like, okay, I'd prefer to eat a papaya, but I live in the UK. I don't want to spend £5 on a single papaya, so I'm just going to accept that this is the best I can do currently. And I think with that outlook, I think you're going to age better, and life's just going to be more enjoyable. Because I don't know about for you, Alex, but for me, quality of life is the amount of time we spend with positive emotions and joy, peace, and love, and energy and vitality. So for me, that's quality of life. So if you spend a lot of time stressing about things just to conform to a label, then wow, that's not quality of life. How do you define quality of life and that sort of things?
Yeah,
Big question.
I'll answer after, because also what came to mind when you shared that is I've also met with Fully Raw Christina when we were in Bali, and she has a super nice vibe, because she's probably the biggest out of all the people we say, at least in terms of influencers and Instagram. Like, of course, in terms of teaching, Dr. Morse might be more, but on Instagram, I think she has like 1 million or 2 there. And she's a super nice person. To me, it's interesting to meet people like this, and super high vibe, super nice. I'd love to. I think I'll have her on the podcast soon when she comes back to Bali. And she's talking about quality of life. She's really crafted her life around also making her diet work too, around that. Like, I mean, it all aligns, right? Because she lives in Hawaii, she grows her food, so then she doesn't have the same choices around, like, well, if I want a papaya, it's expensive, it's not good, it's imported, and you have a whole, you could also go into the ethics of importing that papaya and all that. So, but yeah, that's, I feel, another really good inspiration. She got really good results for herself. And I think she's only 40 or something. So, it's a bit early to be amazed at the longevity, but she has really strong, like, pictures already showing her evolution. And yeah, I think she's one of the, like, super high inspiration also for me, even though as a woman, there's a few things that I need more than men, but I will add her there.
Yeah, 100%.
And quality of life, then she got it, because I feel she's got the nature, she's got the the good fruits and the good food, obviously, and she's got the influence too. She's not like just living somewhere on with fruit trees. She's also on purpose sharing her message on the internet and having massive impact.
100%. Would you say we're aligned on the definition of quality of life? Is there anything you'd want to add, just so people know what we're talking about when we talk? Because every word gets thrown around, but people have different definitions, and I think that's where the confusion comes in.
Yeah. Yeah, quality of life. To me, to me, the most important is always your inner state.
Yeah.
So in my life, it always starts with what do I like, not outside things, and so for me, the quality of life is the mindset I'm in. That's the first thing that's going to determine my quality of life. And then, of course, outside thing also. And then I start with inside, and then outside. Yeah, to me, being close to nature, having access to good food are important. Being with loving people, relationships are really good, and feeling like I have an impact also, that I'm on purpose. It's like, feels like quality of life to me, and comfort also. Yes, so financial abundance also. So living in Bali, for example, I chose something quite similar, where we live in a very beautiful house, where we have massage every week, really good fruits, amazing raw vegan restaurants around. And at the same time, when I take my scooter, there's pollution, there's more noise than I wish, more plastic in the water that I'd like. So that's the not less quality of life that I get on the external. Yeah. Do you vibe with that?
Yeah, 100%. Very much so. I think that's the duality of life, just on your last point, just how there's always that contrast and polar opposite. For peace and love and joy, there has to be hate and anger and, guilt and shame. So yeah, it's just we are living in a very dualistic world. I think a lot of positive and a lot of joy. It's kind of what you focus on, like you say, that inner state. That does seem to be, based on what I've seen with the people I've spoken to, and just anyone who seems to have a good life, they just seem to have a great mastery of their inner state. And that's one thing I would like to just touch on, about how the link between diet, so like the gut and the brain link. Because for you personally, do you notice when you go like fully raw, do you notice less negative thoughts and more mental clarity and being sharper minded? Because that's something I personally observe. And yeah, just as an objective observer, I'll be like, why do I feel a bit more negative? And then I'll look, and on certain days, maybe I've had a little bit more cooked food or something, and just connecting the dots backwards. So yeah, have you noticed any link between maybe the more raw living foods you eat and your mindset, or how has that been for you personally?
Yeah, definitely. It's happened to me that I feel like, oh, I'm feeling quite negative right now. I'm feeling annoyed easily, and I had and for me, it's not. I don't. It's more healthy or not healthy. So usually, raw
Yeah.
living food will be more on the healthy side, and cooked will generally be a little more healthy. But then I feel generally much better if I have steamed broccoli without salt and with buckwheat or something like this than if I have a raw gourmet that's super oily and salt, right, and with a lot of cashew cheese. So I don't necessarily. So usually when I have lay more on the unhealthy side, whether it's technically raw or not, I can feel that it affects me. That's why I've changed on this. And anyway, for me, how my body is always affects a bit my mind too. So it's not just that I have negative emotions coming from having eaten that food. Is if that food anyway makes me tired when I'm and have less energy, then in general my thoughts also a little bit less quality when that happens. So I think the food I eat influences directly my mind, but then it also influences my mind through the body.
Yeah, like a loop. Yeah, I think that's an important distinction that you just made there between not all raw foods are made equally, not all cooked foods are equal. So like steamed bit of broccoli, if we're just talking strictly from an energetic standpoint, I'm not sure how familiar the listener will be with like energy and angstroms, like a unit to measure the energy of food. So like maybe a raw fruit might be 10,000 angstroms and a cooked fruit might be, I don't know, it might lower to 6,000 or some, I don't know where it would lower compared to like you might have a raw nut and seed that's been, it's 3 years old in a bag or something. So that's going to be real low vibration, even though it's raw. So I think that's really important, the distinction you made, because some people, they want to stay raw so much that they'll eat, chia and flaxseed crackers with raw walnut butter.
Let's have a quick break from the episode as there's something I want to share with you. Thank you for watching this far. I'm assuming you're enjoying this episode. So let's connect. I'm building this podcast not just as content, but as a community of light leaders on a mission. So drop a comment under the video. I read and reply to all of them. Pause the video now and share with us. What have you learned so far? Do you have questions or feedback? I also have a Telegram group to stay connected, whatever happens with YouTube and the algorithm. Come and say hi. I put the link in the description. Also, if you want to support this podcast and help it grow, there are a few things you can do. You can hit the like button. You can share this episode with your friends directly to help spread the message from human to human, regardless of the algorithm. Or you can take a screenshot and post it in your Instagram stories. And if you tag me at Alexi Lember, I'll repost it too. Also, subscribe to the channel. And more importantly, hit the notification bell, because if you just subscribe without the notification bell, you let the algorithm dictate whether or not you get shown my videos. So thanks again for supporting and joining the movement. Let's keep co-creating the new us together. And now, enjoy the rest of this episode.
Like you say, that's something I've observed. High fat, based on, I'd say 90% of people who seem to be thriving, they're quite low on the fat spectrum. Lou Corona being the biggest exception. But I think the only reason why Lou is able to do that is because he takes the enzymes. So he's pre-digesting the food. He's soaking and sprouting maybe nuts and seeds or any sort of thing like that. And also he's so busy. He's so busy helping others. He doesn't need real intense bursts of energy. Whereas when you're an athlete, you directly notice that when you're doing endurance events, you need a lot of carbohydrates. Like I'm sure you know from surfing or even just doing anything endurance, you do need a lot of carbohydrates. And that converting fat into energy, that process just takes far too long. So I think that's why I think Lou, with his whole approach and the enzymes and all of it, I feel like it interlinks. But if most people were to try do that approach, the higher fat approach, especially without the enzymes, because he's pre-digesting his food, I feel like it would be very hard to replicate his results. How do you feel on that topic of fat? And yeah,
I mean, when I asked Lou, though, I thought he would be more high fat. He's a bit more high fat for sure, that 80-10-10 and all this. But he also told me he's doing a lot of fruits, a lot of
Hmm.
greens, a lot of vegetables. So he's also
Yeah.
not super high fat, but he's
Yeah, no, he's not
higher fat.
keto.
And I think Shane Sterling, he talks about being more around 20% fat. And so that's more like then 60, 20, 20, roughly. And well, when I look at a lot of the fruitarians, even like, for example, Anne Osborne, also like super sweet, I love her, but a lot of the fruitarians, they're not people, when I look at them and they're 60 and 70, I'm like, wow. And when I look
Yeah.
at Shane and Lou in their age, I'm definitely more like, wow, and also they have very good performance with it. So for me, even though the textbook 80-10-10 is great, I feel a mix of being a little relaxed on it and working with the mind also, but also being relaxed on the fat more specifically. Seems to work well, man. So yeah, that's my idea on it. Now, when we talk about raw, not raw, and of course I agree with you. Sometimes raw is going to be more unhealthy, and that's why I mentioned it. But I also want to share that comes back to what we talked about on the people having their systems for business. Sometimes having a system makes it easier too, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I still really understand when people are like, you know what, I'm going to be fully raw. And then, yes, they'll at some point eat like a raw pizza with cracker and cashew cheese. That's probably less healthy than if they got the steamed broccoli on the menu. But it just makes their life simple, because if you feel like you need that discipline, then if you start to compromise, it's hard to stop. I mean, I do the same with being vegan, right? So when I'm in Europe, if I go to a farm, like maybe there's like, oh, they raise the chickens, so now maybe you can have this, and in a way, and maybe the avocado I'm consuming later, it's been imported and there's been a lot of insects killed in the way. That's what a lot of non-vegans say. Often it's like, oh, that thing is actually less ethical maybe than this thing, and they might be right, but just makes it easy like this. I don't have to, if I don't want to go to a restaurant and always ask like, oh, where did this chicken get raised and how they treated and how long do they live? It's impossible. So then I will have something that's a little strict, where it's like, okay, I'm just plant-based, like this just makes my life easier. Do you want cheese? No. Do you want butter? Oh, but the cheese has been made by, no, I'm vegan. It's like, makes it easy. I think some
Yeah.
people do the same with the raw. It's like, okay, I'm raw vegan, and so people don't try to feed them, buckwheat, even though it might be easier and makes things easy, but they can still indulge a little bit within that frame.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. I think for some people, having those guidelines and strict, hard rules can be good, because if you know yourself and you know as soon as you eat a bit of cooked food, it's not necessarily the cooked food, it's the old habits that are linked with it. Like, then you're going to spiral, then you're going to eat processed food. Maybe if you're like a gambler, or, you're a drug addict, taking a little bit of heroin, that might start things back off again. So I do totally get where for some people having those hard and fast rules could be great. It's just about knowing thyself, I think. And I like what you touched on about the fat, because I think that's the dilemma, because the lower fat you go, typically the more energy you have, but then you do start to sacrifice maybe physical appearance. Like for me, if I go super lean, I do notice my face starts to just be a bit more red, and like, whereas when I'm higher fat, the skin puffs out a bit more. You look more visually appealing on camera, even though you're a little bit higher fat body fat percentage. So it's finding that delicate nuance, because like Durian Ryder, who I know neither of us have interviewed him, but he's super, super low fat, because all he cares about is like performance. So like just getting, fastest cycling times, fastest running times.
Who was that?
Durian Ryder, Harley Freely, the banana girl, her ex-boyfriend. He's quite he used to be popular, like really popular, but he's really big on low fat, so like super low fat, like literally like single digits. And for performance, yes, great, but there's a balance, isn't there? For most of us, we don't want to be Tour de France cyclists, and we don't want to sacrifice maybe the health of our skin. So yeah, I think that's, like you said, nuance. I think depending on what you want out of life, that's going to dictate your approach. That's the most important thing, because for example, early on in my journey, I'd listened to Dr. Robert Morse, and I think what he was saying was like the way. But then I realized he's talking to people who are chronically ill. They might be on death's door, they might be seriously dying. So eating only fruit and really low fat for that period of their life, that's what they need. But for young guys like you and I,
Mm.
you know, maybe we don't need, maybe we're in a more of a building phase in our life. We want to build muscle. We want to maybe, you know, look a certain way. Well, maybe an all fruit diet isn't optimal for that. So it's just different tools, isn't it, in our toolkit for what we want out of life.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And you know, as you were talking about this, also one thing came to mind is the people I had early on my journey on that topic were brothers from Australia, Sinclair and I think Saxon. I can't remember exactly the name, but they're not as famous, but Fisher or something. And I'd like to have them on the show again. They did a documentary on fasting, and they did 40 days. Maybe you know them. And they actually sent me when I was going to Bali to see, to go to a colony where I was fasting, and there I met my radiologist. And that's when, I think 4 years ago now, I went on the raw vegan, or at least high raw vegan path. And it's just interesting how this podcast impacted me in that way. And I see them now; they're still on that high fruit diet, and they're super strong guys. They're quite famous in Australia now, so like they're doing a lot of news reports and all this. So that's been another thing where I interviewed people and it had really a big impact on my life and my journey.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't seen that episode, but I'll have to check it out. That's the thing. It's hard to connect the dots at the time, but then when you look back, you see, oh, okay, I took a little piece from them. They inspired me here and there, and that's how we form our, you know, ourselves as a human being. We just take little bits from everyone. We just observe. We like a certain thing, and we're like, oh yeah, I'll try that in my life. And yeah,
maybe we can conclude this episode and trying to do a little synthesis of what we took from each. I can start if you like because I listed down some of the people, and I think from Doug I took the whole system. 80-10-10 is to me it's the Bible to being a raw vegan. Just gave me, for my mind and the rational food base, it's like really amazing. Morse, I like the herbs and the consciousness I put into it, and the healing part. Shane Sterling, I think, getting a little, not being afraid of fat on this, and Shane's been an inspiration also to go a little to be more driven, actually, because I like that he's raw vegan, but he's not a hippie in a way. You know, it's like we had an episode on business, entrepreneurship, masculinity, which was really good. Didn't do as well in terms of view, but I thought it was a really good episode, and it motivated me to go more along the building a coaching business kind of path. Eli also, I got inspired for like just doing things simply. Like he's just on the fruit and has really good results. Lauren, he inspired me to do the long water fast. Lauren Lockman, that was really cool. Yeah, so that's some of them, you know. And Ted Carr, I took from him a bit of like workout tips and gamifying my workouts, for example. I got from, so every time I would speak to someone, I would add something, and that created where I'm at now as a high raw, still quite low fat, and working out with it and all this. So yeah, and obviously I shared the brothers from Australia. I got into the fasting also thanks to them a while ago. So yeah, lots of, as you said, little influences. But if you were to, of course, hard exercise, but if you were to try and say, this person influenced me for that, this person, after talking to this person, I did more of that. Like, can you share that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think similar to yourself, a lot of the same sort of influences, but I kind of have there's two parts of me, like all of us, you know, you got the left brain and the right brain, you got the logical, you got the more emotional, spiritual. So like you say, I've got good value from people, both on the more spiritual, flexible, go with the flow side, and then also on the, you know, logical nutrition, like track your macros and micros side. So I'd say like on the more intuitive sense and side, I'd say like Dr. Robert Morse. He's been pretty profound in that area. Josh X also. One thing I do like about Josh X is he does combine the two. So that's definitely, those two have been great on that side. I think Remsen Noir has been pretty good for the more logical side of things. Who else? Even some of the interviews I've watched on your channel with Ted Carr and Shane, I would say from the business standpoint, realizing that like you can still want a business, you can still want to develop other areas of your life whilst being healthy and doing it in an ethical way, and yeah, it's not like money is evil. Not that I had that belief, but subconsciously maybe you think that it's either or, that maybe you can't make money and be spiritual or that side of things, which it's good to see people who are doing that. And then I'm trying to think who else. Lou Corona, more intuitive. He doesn't really track any calories or macros, and he's got a real faith in God. And obviously, like you said, Doug Graham, 80-10-10, that is like the raw food Bible. And it's a good general structure and guideline for anyone who's new to raw foods and maybe wants to go for that approach. And yeah, probably a lot more that I've missed, even people at the start of my journey. I don't want to discredit anyone, but like you say, just picking up different bits and pieces from people. And also some people I haven't even spoken to, but I've taken wisdom just from listening to them on your channel, Gillian Berry's channel. And I just like taking bits of advice from people in all different walks of life. Sometimes not even health. Sometimes it'll be like a billionaire guy, or it'll be just like a random video, and there'll be something to learn from them. Maybe what not to do. Sometimes you can look at someone and learn what not to do. Maybe you realize you don't want a life like theirs. So yeah, a lot of insights so far, and I'm excited for my journey and your journey and all of our journeys, because yeah, life, you can't predict life. That's what makes it so fun and exciting, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Dillon. And yeah, I think that was that was very true. I loved when you share, like, people always teach you something, whether it's what to do or what not to do. But yeah, definitely, I think we've been blessed to talk to these people directly and have them on the podcast. And yeah, more to come. I know you and I now we've talked to a lot of those influencers, so we'll still have some, but we've become a little selective also, and also open to having different things. Like for me, I'm more open to conversations like I'm having now, or having more than one guest. And the Light Leaders is at least for my channel, is much beyond the nutrition. So there's a lot of other topics to explore. But yeah, who would be in that niche? Do you still have dream guests, or do you feel you've had most of them already?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't feel like there's anyone I really, really want to speak to. I think there's definitely positive collaborations from a viewer standpoint. Like if I collaborated with maybe Fully Raw Christina, who's got 1 million subscribers, there's no doubt that's going to gain more traction for the message and my channel and that side of things. So yes, from that standpoint, and I do feel inspired by a load of different people, but there's no one who I feel like has got like the secret answer or anything like that. I'm really happy with my current approach. At the same time, yeah, Fully Raw Christina, maybe Get Freely on the channel, probably a few other names. I haven't personally had Lauren on the channel. I haven't personally had Doug. So there's various people who maybe I'll get them at some point, but no one's super on the radar. Maybe someone like Tony Robbins, non like raw vegan camp,
Yeah.
maybe in the future. But yeah, how about yourself?
Yeah, I'm curious, do you follow a bit the medical medium? That was a name that popped for me too.
Yeah, I don't personally, but I know he's super big, and I know Letitia, who we both interviewed, she really loves him, and I know a lot of people have got benefit from his work, and he's pretty mainstream. So yeah, he definitely. There's so many. I've got like a Dream 100 list of people. So yeah, there's probably loads I haven't mentioned.
Cool. Well, let's manifest that. And I think on my side, I'm also opening to more like debates. Doesn't have to be two raw vegans. Like maybe, I don't know, having Dr. Morse and Dr. Greger together, for example.
Yeah.
medical medium, and Lou Corona and another guy that's aging well on a different diet. I think that could be interesting. That's why I wanted to do, like, for example, when I Freely and Doug, is because for me my knowledge of nutrition isn't so deep that if I were to go into a debate with Paul Saladino, for example, he'd probably win just because he knows much more. It doesn't mean he's right. And so that's why I like to arrange with people I feel also can have that. And maybe I'll open up outside the raw vegan niche too on the nutrition topic.
Yeah, definitely. That's something I've definitely contemplated. Maybe like carnivore versus raw vegan, or not even versus, but just a friendly discussion. Because I've seen various ones, but it's people who maybe like vegans and they think humans are herbivores, or like people who think humans are omnivores. So it would be nice to have maybe a frugivore who's been doing it for decades and a pure carnivore, just to.
Well, I've done that. I mean, I haven't done it for decades, but I've done that with a friend of mine who's an omnivore in Ubud. Yeah, have you watched?
Yeah, I think I watched that. Yeah.
But anyway, and that was good. And anyway, then sometimes they get so technical, even if people are super savvy, get super left brain, and that study, that study because of that.
What
study.
About L-carnitine and creatine, and they just start rolling out. Yeah. Things like that.
Then you get maybe you need Remsen then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's definitely an art to it, matching people with similar mind. But yeah, definitely excited.
Yeah, it's interesting to do the debate. Sometimes there's like combination. So again, when for example, it was like Shane, Ted, and Doug, I thought would work much better and didn't as well. But then
the muscle
it depends. Yeah, like having more than one person can be an interesting one to do. And then as a podcast host, you get a new role. It's more moderation than simply asking questions.
Yeah, and trying to get everyone on the same day. 4 people on the same day is quite hard, and time. Yeah. But yeah, I think we've learned a lot already, and I think we've both got the mindset where we're still open to learning more. We haven't figured everything out. No one's figured everything out. So yeah, we're all learning and growing, and just being humble enough to change your mind, I think, is huge.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Dillon. It's been a really cool conversation. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Any last word you want to share?
No, just actually, yes, yes. Just stay humble, stay curious, and just be flexible. Be like water, as Bruce Lee says, and remember to enjoy your life. That's a message to myself as well. But yeah, thanks for your time, Alex. Thanks for you as the viewer or listener. Hope you got some great insights from this. And yeah, much love, everyone.
Nice. Yeah, thank you. It's usually a message to ourselves anyway when we share something. Yeah. So that's all good. And I love that you share. Many people say no and then say something, so that you corrected to yes. Thank you, Dillon. Much love, everyone.
Thanks. Peace and love.